Hey everyone! Welcome to today's Explainer. We are exploring the absolutely fascinating intersection of modern manifestation trends, quantum physics, and the hard neuroscience of the human brain. We're going to look at some incredibly popular concepts today and see what happens when we put them under the microscope of objective science.
Now that is a pretty provocative question, right? If you spend any time online these days, you've definitely seen people claiming they can leap into parallel realities to instantly upgrade their lives. So today, we're going to objectively unpack the science, the buzzwords, and the actual hypotheses behind these viral trends to figure out how they might work on a practical level.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the manifestation trend. Second, the quantum mind hypotheses. Third, criticisms and mysticism. Fourth, the neuroscience of manifestation. And fifth, rewiring your reality. Let's get right into it.
Section 1, the quantum manifestation trend, tapping into alternate realities and the void. Let's start by looking at this massive cultural phenomenon, which has been heavily popularized by deep meditation practices and viral self-help programs.
A huge cornerstone of all this is a technique called quantum jumping. The guy who created this, Burt Goldman, basically suggested that you can tap into parallel universes to learn from an alternate you, one who has already achieved all your goals. He actually famously claimed that he used this exact method to teach himself how to paint beautifully right before his 80th birthday, with literally zero prior experience. Pretty wild, right?
And this really highlights the shift we're seeing from older self-help models. Standard creative visualization is all about making mental pictures to shape your current reality. But quantum jumping, it goes way further. It claims you are connecting directly with the tangible wisdom and experiences floating around out there in the multiverse.
So how do they do it? Well, the process is usually taught in 4 specific steps. You start in your current reality on a mental launchpad, then you visualize stepping into the multiverse to meet your alternate self. You gather up their skills or information, and finally, you return to your everyday life to apply it. It is actually a very structured mental exercise.
This trend has even blown up into premium, high-end programs like quantum wealth activation. But if you look closely at these pillars, they're actually blending very traditional coaching techniques like nervous system regulation to get you out of fight or flight mode, with quantum terminology and spiritual practices like group Reiki. It's quite the mix.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the quantum mind hypotheses, the theoretical physics framework. You might be wondering, where does this quantum terminology originally come from? Well, it doesn't come from the self-help world. It stems from incredibly complex and heavily debated hypotheses deep within theoretical physics.
It traces back to a theory called ORC-R, developed by theoretical physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. They pitched the idea that human consciousness isn't just the result of neurons making basic connections. Instead, they suggested it involves quantum wave function collapse happening inside these tiny cellular structures called microtubules.
What is absolutely fascinating here is Penrose's argument. He's basically saying that to truly understand the mind, we have to look way beyond classical physics. We literally have to zoom all the way down to non-computable, microscopic quantum events happening inside our biology to figure out what makes us conscious.
Which brings us to Section 3, criticisms and quantum mysticism, the decoherence debate. Now, as cool as a quantum brain sounds, we really have to note that these hypotheses face massive scrutiny and skepticism from the broader physics community.
Critics, like physicist Lawrence Krauss, argue that the human brain is just way too warm, wet, and chaotic to sustain a quantum state. In fact, another physicist, Max Tegmark, crunched the numbers and found that quantum systems in the brain would decohere, meaning they'd lose their quantum state, at sub-picosecond timescales. Guys, that is trillions of times faster than any known neural response.
And some scientists are even more blunt about it. Physicist Victor Stenger called the quantum mind a myth with no scientific basis, saying it belongs right next to unicorns and dragons. So, for mainstream science, this is very much an unvalidated fringe hypothesis.
Unfortunately, this scientific debate gave birth to what is known as quantum mysticism. This is where public figures borrow quantum vocabulary to claim you can do things like reverse aging or cure physical ailments. Physicists argue this is a complete misuse of the science. It's taking highly mathematical models of subatomic particles and wrongly applying them to spiritual manifestation.
Okay, Section 4, Neuroscience of Manifestation. How belief physically alters the brain.
So if it's not quantum physics shifting our reality, why do people experience such profound results? Let's look at the concrete biological explanations.
It really comes down to this incredible built-in filter at the base of your brainstem called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Have you ever decided you wanted to buy a red car, and suddenly you see red cars absolutely everywhere? That's your RAS at work. When you intensely focus on a goal, your RAS filters the massive amount of sensory data you process every single day, and suddenly it allows you to notice opportunities and resources that you were completely ignoring before.
And it goes way deeper than just filtering. Thanks to neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to physically alter itself based on experience, repetitive visualization literally rewires your brain. You are strengthening your prefrontal cortex to boost self-belief, and you're shrinking the fear and stress responses in the amygdala. You aren't just thinking differently, you're structurally changing your brain to support your goals.
Plus, there's the dopamine factor. Just anticipating the success of your goals releases dopamine. And here's the secret. Dopamine isn't just a reward chemical for after you succeed. It is a potent motivator that drives you to take real-world action. Vivid visualization creates a dopamine feedback loop that naturally propels you to make your desired reality actually happen.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, Rewiring Your Reality, Practical Brain Training. Let's take all the mystical ideas and the hard science and figure out how to actually put this into practice using evidence-based methods.
If we strip away the mystical jargon, a scientific manifestation practice comes down to these 5 concrete steps. You set a clear intention to prime your RAS. You visualize vividly to trigger neuroplasticity. You repeat affirmations with real emotion. You take small, congruent microactions to satisfy the brain's need for consistency. And finally, you track your progress to keep that dopamine loop firing. You are literally training your biology to succeed.
Ultimately, whether you believe you're jumping to a parallel universe, tapping into the mystical void, or just hacking the incredible neuroplasticity of your own mind, the tangible results on your life can be profoundly real. Focused attention and action genuinely reshape your world. But it begs the question, does it matter to you if the heavy lifting is being done by the invisible fabric of the cosmos, or the adaptable wiring inside your own head? I'll leave you to ponder that. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.